Unstoppable Women 2025 is officially happening. And if you are a woman in business who's ready to grow, stretch, and get in the room with other ambitious women, this is your event. It's a full day high energy experience happening on Friday, the 29th of August in Brisbane at the Brisbane Convention and Entertainment Centre. And it's for the women who are tired of doing it alone, are ready for real strategy, real conversations, and real momentum. This isn't your average get inspired and take notes kind of day. It's not a boring sit down conference. We're talking powerful speakers, curated connections, breakthrough moments, high energy performances that will stay with you long after the day is done. If you've been craving connection, clarity, next level strategy in a room full of women who really get it, you're going to want to be there. Click the link in the show notes and pop your name on the notify me list so you can be first in the know when the next allocation of tickets go on sale. These tickets won't be available forever. The way our ticket system works is that you will get an email and those tickets will go on sale for a short period of time and then they will close. Once they close, the price will go up for the next allocation to then open weeks later. So please don't snooze on this. Please don't wait. Make sure that if you're on the notify list, that as soon as you get that email, you jump straight in and grab your ticket. Otherwise, you'll miss out and be super disappointed. All right, go put your name on the notify me list and let's get into today's episode. Welcome to 5 Minutes of Momentum. These episodes are a short 5-minute burst of inspiration, motivation, and massive action. If you need that little kick up the butt to get things moving and to inspire you to take massive action, then every single Thursday I'll be sending you through a 5-minute episode to download, digest, and implement to finish your week off strong. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to share this with you today. A little nervous, a little bit apprehensive, only because it's I've been working on this for so long. I spent the whole of 2024 writing it and it took months and months to then edit it and then get it out into the world. And it's just at that precipice of it's like you're birthing something into the world and you hope that people like it and also super proud of what you've created and being okay with the fact that even if they don't like it, I don't care because I love it. But also super excited to have it in the hands of my beautiful clients and just anyone that resonates with the topic. So my new book, Turn Impostor Syndrome into Your Superpower, is almost out. And I will tell you absolutely as soon as it's available for you to purchase and the launch dates. Just waiting for all the final details, but I'm recording this without actually knowing what the launch date will be. So if the book is out, you will have a link in the show notes, which will give you a heads up of the launch date and you can purchase it. So if you're listening to this episode and it's already been out for a couple of months, the book is probably out. So you should be able to get access to it via the link in the show notes. So what I'd love to do today is give you a sneak peek into the book, tell you a little bit about it, my concept, where it came from, and to actually read a couple of chapters for you. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that it resonates with you. And if you feel called, I'd love for you to grab a copy. Okay, so the concept of the book came from a conversation that I had with a publisher because I had previously written another book. So if you've heard this story before, I apologize for repeating it. But basically, I wrote another book and it was all about 15 different self-sabotaging habits that keep you playing small and that impact the growth of your business. And I wrote that book. It was 100,000 words. I remember finishing it. I was in Vanuatu, went intentionally to Vanuatu to finish the book, finished it, loved it, started to look for a publisher. Had a whole bunch of conversations with different publishers and was quoted crazy amounts of money. FYI, writing and publishing a book is not a cheap activity. But basically, in the conversations that I had with different publishers, one publisher, once I shared the concept with him and spoke to him about, and he actually asked me the great questions around what do you want this book to do for you and your business? And I was like, I want it to get me speaking gigs. I want it to get my name on the map. I want it to create an energy around an expert vibe, right? Go-to person for mindset in business. And so when I shared my goals around the purpose of the book, he literally bluntly said to me, the book is too long. The level of impact that you currently have, no one is going to read a 100,000 word book from you. They're not that invested in you yet. And I was like, ugh. And I remember him saying to me, I'm sharing with you because I wish, someone had said this to me at the beginning when I first started writing my books. And so I'm I really valued that opinion and agreed with him, 100% agreed with him. I'm I know that not everyone is going to be invested in reading or listening to a 100,000 word book because nobody knows who the hell I am, right? And so he said it needs to be a short concept. It needs to be something that everyone understands, something that easily grabs people's attention to be yep, I need that. and that will get you the results that you're looking for with regards to your goals with this book. And I was like, oh, well, I actually already have the concept of that kind of book, and it's something that I've been teaching on for years. And I told him then the concept of this book, and he was like, that's it. You need to go write that book. And so I left that event where I had that conversation, and that was in February in 2024. And I got home, and I actually, on the plane on the way home, I wrote the concept out. So I mapped out exactly what the concept would be. And because I've been teaching masterclasses on this concept, and I had been, telling clients how to overcome this, and I had a whole different concept of what I had seen in the market. And so I was really excited by it, and I mapped it all out of my head and onto paper, and got home and was like, I'm going to write this in 3 months. Now, business happened, life happened, and so that did not happen. 3 months was adventurous, and so I did not actually get it done in 3 months. I think it took me 7 to 8 months. I think I fully completed it in December, if I can remember correctly, because I remember having a conversation with my now publisher, and she was like, where are you at with it? And I was like, it's almost finished. I need to look back at that date. But I think it was in December, or it might have been November. And basically, it took me a while to finish it, but it was definitely one that just flowed out of me, and everything came through. And then I went back and was like, okay, what other stories can I add that would make this really valuable and get my point across and communicate it really effectively? And then I started going through the editing process. Going through the editing process was actually not too challenging, to be honest. I thought it was going to be super challenging, but it actually wasn't, because of the way that I had fleshed the book out already and done a lot of the editing myself. Going through the editing process was great. And then we finalized everything, and it's now the 17th of April, and I'm just waiting for the final go ahead for the date for the launch, and when I can have books delivered. So that's super exciting. So the name of the book, as I said, is Turn Impostor Syndrome into Your Superpower. So this is a transformational guide that helps to redefine how you approach imposter syndrome. So whether you experience imposter syndrome or not, which I know you do because you're human, that imposter syndrome can show up in ways of like self-doubt or avoidance or feeling inadequate while you're striving for more in life. So this is very much for the high achiever, for the person who's going after the next big thing, anyone in business, anyone that feels imposter syndrome shows up for them and keeps them playing small. The difference in this concept is that I don't teach you how to overcome it. I actually teach you how to use it as a tool for growth, because imposter syndrome doesn't actually go away. Whereas a lot of other books look at imposter syndrome as this hurdle, right? It's like you have to overcome it, and then once you overcome it, you're good. No. That's not how imposter syndrome works. Every single time you step outside your comfort zone, you experience the imposter syndrome, because it is your brain's protection mechanism that kicks in and causes you to play safe, right? Which then causes you to play small. So I share throughout this book relatable stories of my life experiences, client stories, but I share neuroscience-backed strategies to help you work with the fear-based thought pattern that is imposter syndrome, and the things that you need to work on in order to move through it, to come through the other side, to actually learn how to use it as your superpower. Because when you use it as your superpower, it can be the ultimate tool for growth, and you can expand beyond your wildest dreams. And I put this into practice last year. Like, I had the intention, once I left that first event, and I knew that year was going to be expansive, because I'd made these big investments in attending events in America and flying across there and meeting incredible people. And I know I've done podcast episodes on that before, so I won't go into that in depth, because I really want to get to reading a chapter for you. Getting on that plane and then writing out the structure of the book, I remember, and then writing it, like through the process of writing it, I had certain experiences that happened throughout the year, which I ended up putting in the book, because I was like, oh, this is a perfect example of it showing up like this, or this is a perfect example of this. And all these different experiences, and even like client experiences that basically were sharing with me how it was showing up for them. And so I made sure that I put those in the book, because I wanted to make it super relatable. So all the experiences that I experience, but also clients experience, are going to be in the book to help you understand that it happens to everyone, and it happens on a regular basis, and it's not a big thing. It's often in the small moments that it impacts you. So we often think it's like, oh, I'm going to experience it when I step on stage. Yes, you will, 100%. When you put a book out into the world, yes, you will, 100%. I'm experiencing it hardcore now, now that I know I'm getting this out into the world. And so you will experience it no matter what, especially if you have chosen a bigger life, especially if you have chosen to push beyond your comfort zone and go after living a life of your fullest potential. If you have not chosen that, and you're willing to just be mediocre, and you're willing to just sit in your own room and do your own little small 9 to 5 job and not really stretch or reach for anything more for your life, then you probably don't experience imposter syndrome much. It might show up when you're going for a promotion or when you're going for a pay rise and things like that. But ultimately, if you're living a life in your comfort zone, you probably won't experience it. But if you've chosen to be in business, you've chosen to get out of your comfort zone and do things you've never done before. So this book will absolutely be for you. So the tagline for the book is how to rewire your brain to stop playing small and unapologetically go after what you want. Okay, let me read you the first chapter. Introduction. It was a rare, sunny Melbourne day, and I had borrowed my sister's car to head to the conference centre. I parked close by because my heels did not allow for a long walk, the things we do to look good, right? Before I got out, I took a moment in the car to reset my energy and to visualise my keynote going well one more time. I intentionally played out the entire event in my head, moment to moment, watching the audience nod along, smile, and clap at the end of my presentation, with smiling faces across the crowd looking back at me. I took a snapshot in my mind and enjoyed the emotions of feeling proud and excited about how well it all went. I took a few deep breaths, gazed out the car window, and opened the door into the fresh air. I walked into the conference centre and was greeted by an organiser I had chatted with over Zoom in preparation for this day. Her welcoming smile put me at ease as she explained that there was another speaker finishing up and there would be a 10-minute break for me to get mic'd up and ready to hit the stage. Landing this gig, my biggest speaking keynote to date, was a long process, and it had felt like more than 4 months of preparation leading up to this moment. The interview and pitch process was in depth, and with every new stage I came up against the imposter syndrome again and again. Australia's largest specialty fashion retailer was flying all the managers and leaders from their 5 iconic brands from across the country into Melbourne to be a part of a leadership conference. I was taking the stage as one of the keynote speakers to present on human behaviour-based leadership skills. The purpose of the keynote and the conference at large was to support their employees to feel seen, heard, and more integrated in the company's future goals and direction. I did not feel qualified. Up until that point, I'd only spoken in front of groups of 30 to 40 people and never a full 90-minute keynote, but I was not going to let that stop me. The event organiser suggested I come in and sit at a back table as the speaker was finishing up, and as we walked towards the big floor-to-ceiling conference doors, I could feel the anticipation building up inside me. As she opened the big door, the bright lights shone through and opened up to an enormous room, a decorated stage with a couch, a podium, and countless tables of people spreading out across the room. With over 200 people giving their full attention to the stage, I immediately felt a lump rise in my throat. Fuck, can I do this? At the back table, the general manager and a few other high-ranking individuals at the company introduced themselves to me. They warmly welcomed me and expressed their enthusiasm for my presentation. I smiled and nodded and thanked them for the opportunity, immediately forgetting their names because of the nerves. As I sat there for what felt like 20 minutes, although it was probably only 2, my heart rate increased, my eyes darted around the room, and my breath felt shallow and fast. I couldn't concentrate on the speaker, and I could feel the anxiety of the moment getting to me. I excused myself to head to the bathroom. The deep breaths I was taking weren't working. I stepped into the restrooms and walked straight up to the sink. With hands gripped to the sides of the sink, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, "Get it together, Christine. You've wanted to do this for years, and today is the day." I nervously looked around and listened for any indication that there was anyone in the bathroom stalls and felt relief when there wasn't. I splashed some cold water on the back of my neck and took some long deep breaths and shook out my hands to try to release some of the anxious energy. The imposter syndrome I knew so well was following its script, saying just the right thing to keep me in fear. I wanted to run back to the car and get the hell out of there. I looked down at my feet. They were so heavy I couldn't move. I looked at myself in the mirror again, mouth open, short, shallow breaths escaping my lips, my heart beating in my ears. I knew this was going to happen. Then I knew the fear would show up now. I know how to handle this, I reassured myself out loud, trying to coax myself through the steps I so often taught to my clients. Overcoming the imposter syndrome was part of my job, and here I was, bent over the bathroom sink, minutes before my own keynote, overcome with it. How ironic. As I took a deep breath, I closed my eyes and navigated through my process. I shook my hands out, releasing the built-up nervous energy, put my hand on my stomach and closed my eyes. I transmuted the feeling of fear in my body to excitement and instantly felt better. I again looked at myself in the mirror and gave myself the pep talk I needed. You are a skilled speaker. You've spoken in front of people before. You know how to do this. Get on that stage and show them you've got this. Yes, there are more this time, but it's just a few small groups of 30 people, and you've spoken to groups of 30 before. You know what to do. Make eye contact, connect with their energy, engage them into your presentation, and follow your slides. You've practiced this for hours and hours. Your subconscious mind remembers it all. and knows exactly what to do, and if you get stuck, you take a breath and ask a question of the crowd until you're back on track. Who are you to tell a bunch of leaders how to manage their team? You're not a leader, the imposter syndrome shouted at me. You may not be leading a team at the moment, but you've led more than a team of 20 people before and you know the challenges they face. You've also been at a conference like this before and know what it's like to sit there and listen to a speaker. So share your stories and let them know you're just like them. You get it, and you're here to give them the lessons you've learned. Plus, you know more about human behavior and mindset than 90% of the people in the room, and your presentation is good. Teach them what you know and you'll make a positive impact. You've studied this and you know humans. Connect with the humans. Now do your pre-speaker routine and go make yourself proud, my higher self demanded. I adjusted my hair, touched up my lipstick, and went to get mic'd up. Before going on stage, I took myself to a quiet spot, popped in my headphones, and played my pre-stage songs to pump up my energy, listening and visualizing the full presentation. As I walked back into the room, someone handed me the clicker for my presentation, and after being introduced, I confidently stepped onto the stage. I scanned the room, all eyes on me. Took a few steps to the center and asked 3 powerful, engaging questions with people raising their hands in response to get a feel for the room. My breath was fast and shallow. I paused after each question, took a moment to slow my breathing and soothe my nerves. Throughout the full 90-minute presentation, I remembered each part as my subconscious mind delivered it to me, taking the audience on a journey. I loved every minute. It felt energetic, engaging, and fun. Everyone stayed invested and laughed along at my many stories of what it's like managing people. I broke the audience into smaller groups for a fun exercise where I had a moment to check in with the room and the GM to ensure we were on track. I was pleased to see they were loving it. I finished up with shares from the room and got everyone to stand as I took them through a powerful process to embody the leaders they wanted to be, finishing with a standing ovation of applause. I didn't miss a beat, and as I stepped off that stage in my stilettos, feeling proud of what I had achieved, I felt different. With a smile from ear to ear, I took some time to chat to the organisers and wish them well for the remainder of the conference before I headed back to the car. Sitting in the car afterwards, I sat in full gratitude for an incredible experience, replaying the 90 minutes in my head, taking the time to celebrate myself and acknowledging what worked well. The adrenaline was still running through my veins and I couldn't stop myself from smiling as I put the key in the ignition and drove off. I could now call myself a keynote speaker. If I had let the imposter syndrome get to me that day, I would never have had the opportunity to prove it wrong. I would have run scared in the opposite direction and never been able to call myself a keynote speaker. That pesky little voice in our heads has the best arsenal to use against us. It has the power to derail our dreams, cause us to play small, and keep us stuck, doubting our abilities and talents, if we let it. Rewind 12 months, the imposter syndrome could have derailed this whole opportunity before it even began. You see, 12 months earlier, a friend of mine who worked for the retail brand had been watching me show up online on social media, sharing my message and promoting my business, and she reached out about the opportunity to speak at their conference. My initial response was a wake-up call. I was excited for the opportunity, but when she asked me to send through some videos of me speaking so she could pitch me to the general manager for that year's conference, my stomach sank. I had nothing. There was nothing I could share with her that would be beneficial or would showcase my speaking skills. No speaker reel or even videos on social media that would be remotely worthwhile. This was a blinding realization for me. I was calling myself a speaker, yet I was not showing up as one. My friend politely explained that she couldn't put me forward without any video content to present to the GM. They required it, which I completely understood. Maybe next year, she said forlornly. From that moment, I made it my mission to get more video footage of me speaking in preparation for the opportunity the year after. I would take this as the sign, the decision to move through the fear of overcoming imposter syndrome and begin recording myself speaking. Up until that point, I had let my imposter syndrome talk me out of it every time. You're not an expert. You don't know what you're talking about. Everyone is going to laugh at you, judge you, and see right through you. It nagged me time and time again. But if I was going to achieve my next level dreams, I would have to put myself out there and challenge myself to overcome that fear for good. This set off a multitude of experiences and opportunities that led me to turn the imposter syndrome into my superpower for growth and success. After years of coaching women in business to overcome imposter syndrome, I've seen it plague even the most successful women for too long. To then see them triumph in spite of it has encouraged me to share the tools with so many people as I can, so you too can stop letting the imposter syndrome keep you from realizing your dreams. It is possible to prove to yourself and others what you're not only capable of, but born to do. So over the next few chapters, I'm going to not only teach you how to overcome the fear-based thought pattern that is imposter syndrome, but how to turn it into a tool that you can use to expand yourself personally, professionally, and ultimately upgrade your experience of life. Whether or not you have a business, you can still use these tools I share with you to rewire your brain and overcome imposter syndrome again and again and allow yourself to live into your fullest expression. No more hiding, no more playing small, and no more getting in your own way. So if you're done with letting imposter syndrome talk you out of opportunities, expansion, and growth, then come with me. It's going to be so simple, you wish you had known this years ago. Chapter 1. We all experience imposter syndrome. I still have a little imposter syndrome. It doesn't go away, that feeling that you shouldn't take me that seriously. What do I know? I share that with you because we all have doubts in our abilities, about our power, and about what power is. Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States. 60% of women delay starting their own business because of imposter syndrome, feeling they lack the confidence or self-belief, thinking they don't deserve success despite having the necessary skills. NatWest Group. 84% of entrepreneurs experience imposter syndrome at some stage. This feeling is particularly prevalent in the early stages of business when they are navigating uncertainties and challenges. eFund Business Advertising. Up to 90% of women in leadership positions report experiencing imposter syndrome, including business owners, which often holds them back from taking bold steps in their ventures. Keep on eFund Business Advertising study. These are pretty big stats. I would go as far as to say that I believe these numbers would be higher if the studies had been larger. I believe everyone experiences imposter syndrome. These stats are 100% why I felt called to write this book. Too many of us allow imposter syndrome to derail our dreams and cause us to play small instead of backing ourselves, believing in our abilities, and going after what we want. As things stand, the conversation of imposter syndrome is one of defeat. Online, in conference rooms, and one-to-one, the conversation usually frames imposter syndrome as the reason someone cannot go after what they want, like it's an incurable disease and one they'll just have to live with, meaning their dreams are over. This just isn't the case. Too many of my clients hold themselves back, believing the words of their imposter syndrome as truth, until I work with them to change that. Holding on to this fixed mindset prevents them from fully living an extraordinary life because they accept imposter syndrome as fact, rather than something they can change. They believe that because they have a thought like, I'm a fraud, they're going to figure it out, that it must be true. Because they think, I'm not good enough or qualified enough, it must be true. I'm here to tell you, don't believe everything you think. Imposter syndrome is not an incurable disease that cannot be overcome. It's just a series of thoughts, and thoughts can be changed. Before we dive into changing the imposter syndrome into your superpower, I want you to realize the incredible power your mind can have over you. With just a thought, an unsubstantiated thought, you can give up on your dreams and think you're not worthy of them, causing you to change your life direction and give up. Crazy, right? One or two simple thoughts can be the difference between living into your fullest potential or settling for a life as mediocre as it is. Aren't your dreams important to you? If you're going to be able to stop limiting yourself and truly live to your fullest, you'll need to learn to wield the power of your mind. So with that in mind, let's dive into our first superpower activation. Superpower activation number 1, imposter syndrome exploration. Let's start with 2 simple questions, but before you read them, I want you to fully commit to really allowing your mind to explore the fullest answer to these questions. Don't rush through them, pause, take time to journal on them and explore the questions. 1. What if the imposter syndrome I experience didn't exist? 2. What if I felt completely confident in myself and my skills and went after my dreams with fearless abandon? What would be possible for me? Take your time to truly ponder on these questions and allow your mind to wander to the possibilities. What could you achieve if you no longer suffered from imposter syndrome? What would life be like if you were no longer afflicted by these nasty thoughts? What possibilities would open up for you if you were no longer affected by imposter syndrome's arsenal of judgments and comments? Through the book, there are multiple superpower activations and resources. If you no longer let fear stop you in your tracks and instead continue to take massive action towards creating the life you dream of, could an extraordinary life be possible for you? I'm sure it could be. Allowing your mind to perceive a reality where this fear-based thought pattern, imposter syndrome, no longer exists, shows you the possibilities of what life could be like. And the more attention you give that reality, the more likely you are to want to move toward it. If you really let your mind wander just now, I'm sure it conjured up miraculous experiences, possibilities, and massive action taking. You possibly saw yourself achieving everything you've ever wanted in life. Yet you're letting some made-up thoughts be the obstacle that prevent you from living your best life. You're letting them keep you stuck. That's the power your mind has over you. Don't disregard it. Learn to harness your mind for the better. Step 1, awareness. We all experience our own form of imposter syndrome. If you have a brain and identify as a human, you're most likely experienced imposter syndrome at some point in your life. If you think you haven't, you've either not stepped out of your comfort zone and done something that would expand you, or you're just not consciously aware of the thoughts of fear that are affecting your everyday behavior. You see, the most important step in turning the imposter syndrome into your superpower is first to become aware of how it shows up for you. You need to know where it's holding you back, what arsenal it uses in its defense strategies, and when it shows up for you so you can learn to harness it. Without awareness, our thoughts can go unchecked and undetected and our behavior undetected, which means no change can happen. You wouldn't have picked up this book if you didn't think imposter syndrome was affecting you, but I wanted to bring this to your attention because whether people are aware of it or not, imposter syndrome affects everyone. Being fully aware of the breadth of imposter syndrome is important so you don't separate your successful people from yourself simply because you think you're the only one afflicted with this horrible psychological phenomenon. You're not. You are not special. Well, you are, but for this specific purpose, you are not different to every other person on the planet. You're human, and if you're human, you doubt yourself, you have fearful thoughts, you hold yourself back. You likely talk yourself out of doing what you want to do because you don't believe you're good enough. You, my friend, experience imposter syndrome. In the process of writing this book, I went looking for examples of people experiencing imposter syndrome. I have so many from my own life experience, especially in my years of growing my business and many client examples. But it's always so refreshing to find that many successful and famously talented people also reflect on their struggles with imposter syndrome. Jodie Foster, Michelle Obama, Lady Gaga, Meryl Streep are among the successful famous people who have reflected on their struggles with imposter syndrome. These prominent leaders have openly discussed the doubts and fears that have plagued them, how they have perceived themselves as imposters despite having received awards, accolades, recognition, and approval. They continue to be affected by imposter syndrome, and the more I am aware of it, the more I see it on social media and TV, especially seeing someone being interviewed. You can see it on their faces and hear it in their responses. We all experience it. I share this with you because often people believe that if they reach the epitome of success, if they receive the recognition, awards, accolades, that they would then believe they were good enough and no longer experience imposter syndrome. But that's just not the case. It doesn't go away. No matter how successful you are, if you're striving for greatness, if you're stepping outside your comfort zone, you're going to experience imposter syndrome. Sometimes I wake up in the morning before going off to a shoot and think, I can't do this, I'm a fraud. Kate Winslet, actress. There are still days when I wake up feeling like a fraud, not sure I should be where I am. Sheryl Sandberg, former COO of Meta. The thing is, even when there is proof of greatness, our brains will still bring up these doubtful, pestering thoughts as a way to protect us, just in case there is danger afoot. Imposter syndrome has nothing to do with our skills, talents, or accolades, and everything to do with our brain trying to keep us safe. So rather than think, the only way for me to not feel like an imposter is to have the proof of success, talent, or expert status, I want you to think about how your brain is wired and how you have the power to rewire the programming. It's not the qualifications, the years of experience, or awards. It's about your thought patterns and your response to those thoughts that matter. How you think determines how you feel, and being more famous, more talented, more skilled will not change how your brain works unless you consciously choose to change your thought patterns. When imposter syndrome shows up for you, notice how I said for you. This is because it's exactly what's happening. It's showing up to protect you, to keep you safe. What does it say to you? What's its unique flavor of words that it uses to disarm you? These are common phrases I hear from people when describing imposter syndrome. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. There's someone better, more deserving. You're not good enough to say that, do that, ask for that. You're not experienced enough. You're not qualified enough. You're not an expert. Who do you think you are? Who am I? I feel like a fraud. I don't belong here. I just got lucky. It wasn't skill. I'm not an expert. I'm not as good as everyone thinks I am. I'm not qualified for this. I'm afraid of being exposed as a fake. I don't deserve this success. It's only a matter of time before people realize I'm not capable. I'm not smart enough for this role. I must work harder to prove myself. Others are more talented than I am. I'm just pretending to be confident. I feel like I'm deceiving others about my abilities. I don't have the skills, talent everyone thinks I do. I'm afraid to ask questions because it'll reveal my lack of knowledge or expertise. I'm not worthy of the praise I receive. I'm not a real expert, just a beginner who got lucky. I'm afraid of being exposed as a phony. My success is just a fluke. They're going to know you're a fraud. They're going to figure it out. They're going to find out I'm not as competent as they believe. I want you to take a moment and think back to a recent time you experienced your personal flavor of imposter syndrome and uncover what words it used to coax you back into your comfort zone and caused you to freeze in fear. What did it say to you? It's important that you know this because the more awareness you have around your imposter syndrome, the easier it is to detect when it shows up. In order to turn the imposter syndrome into your superpower, you must first know how and when it shows up and what arsenal it uses against you, causing you to play small. So what does it say? And when does it show up for you? There are so many experiences that can activate imposter syndrome, and I'm sure you'll continue to add more to your list. But for now, take a moment to uncover a few instances where it's shown up for you in the past and notice if there are any scenarios that are similar. Sometimes it's when you're speaking up, putting yourself out there, promoting yourself or your business, sharing your expertise. Maybe it's when you compare yourself to other people, when you hit new milestones, or when you're recognized for doing a good job. Maybe it's when you meet other talented or famous people, when you're joining new groups, or even starting to learn something new. When does imposter syndrome show up for you? I remember when I first decided to start my podcast, The Next Level Life, back in 2017. Back then, podcasts hadn't become uber popular in Australia yet, and after religiously following and listening to a few of my favourite American podcasts, I knew it was something I really wanted to do. I had just come off the back of 2 years of study on human behaviour, coaching and neuroscience, and felt called to share my lessons and experiences on everything I was learning and the positive impact it was having on my life. I wanted more people to learn this stuff so they could live happy and fulfilled lives too. I also knew how easily I found speaking to be for me, and how sitting at home alone talking into a microphone was easier than showing my face on video on social media. And I did not feel ready for that, thanks imposter syndrome. I knew I needed a way to get my message out there, and if I was ever going to get my business off the ground, a podcast felt less exposing, so I decided to start there. I mapped out an episode plan and recorded a few episodes to begin with, but when I started creating the podcast art, the thought of putting it out there to everyone became real, and it made me freeze in fear. I had felt confident talking about the topics I had chosen, and had even found my first guest to interview. But now that it was becoming real, that people might actually listen to my podcast, it dawned on me that people out in the world would hear what I was saying, and the imposter syndrome kicked in with a vengeance. Who was I to think I could teach others about mindset? Who did I think I was starting a podcast? You're not an expert. You don't know what you're talking about. People are going to laugh at you. They're going to see right through you and judge you. Experts are going to ridicule you and tear you down, and you'll be the laughingstock of your family and friends. Don't do this. You're going to regret it. I heard the imposter syndrome screaming in my ear. I sat at my desk frozen in fear as I looked at my face on the podcast tile art I had created. None of my friends had ever started businesses. None had even listened to podcasts. This was a bad idea. Who would want to listen to you talk about the brain and mindset? You're not a psychologist. You're not a neuroscientist. Just give up now. Stay in your job, stay in your lane, and forget about this, the voice in my head continued. I stood up and took a deep breath. I knew if I sat there any longer, my brain would talk me into giving up on myself and my business altogether, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I stepped away from my desk that day, and 24 hours later, I came back, grabbed an A4 size notepad, and started writing down all the reasons why I should and must start a podcast. I needed to convince myself it was a good idea. It started off slow. I should start a podcast because it's less scary than doing video, and I need something to attract clients into my business. I love to talk, and podcasting is the best way to talk until my heart's content. I jotted down these notes, but imposter syndrome still came screaming back. You're nobody. You don't deserve to have a podcast. No one will listen, and it will be a flop. My inner voices battled. Who are you not to start one? Does it really matter? At the end of the day, will people really care if you started a podcast? Well, there probably won't be many people listening to begin with, and people are obsessed with their own lives. They will not care about what I'm doing for very long. Next week, they'll be caring about something else. The reason you want to start a podcast is a legitimate reason. You want to help people, and that's whether you're following through on, even if it doesn't work out. You're educated on this topic. You know how to break things down to make it so simple and practical for people to learn from. Besides, this shit could change someone's life. It could change your own. You have lots of experiences to share that people will find value from. Your stories could help someone change their lives. Isn't that reason enough? You've studied human behavior, neuroscience, coaching, hypnotherapy, and neurolinguistic programming. This stuff is life-changing and it needs to be shared. You don't have to call yourself an expert, you just have to share from your experience. Plus, you did an elective in high school on how to be a radio presenter, so podcasting will be right up your alley. Okay, I guess this is kind of like radio presenting. I then took all the mental chatter my brain had torpedoed at me and started to debate with myself. When my brain said, "You're no expert, you don't know what you're talking about," I wrote this down. I do know what I'm talking about. I've studied this. I'm not making it up. No, I'm not an expert, but I do have value to share, and I know that by sharing what I know, it could help other people massively. People need to know this stuff about their brain. They're out there living their lives thinking that everything they think is true, and they cannot change their thoughts or feelings, but they can. People need to know this is not the case. People are going to laugh at you. They're going to see right through you and judge you, I responded. Who cares if they do? Like really, if they laugh at me for sharing valuable information about their brains and inner workings of what it's like to be a human and laugh at me for sharing my experience, then let them laugh. Besides, I'll probably never know if they laughed or not. It's not likely that they'll laugh in my face. They'll just do it behind my back. Will I really let fear of judgment be the reason why I don't start this podcast? No. Who would want to listen to you talk about the brain and mindset? You're not a psychologist. You're not a brain surgeon or neuroscientist. True, but I may offer a different perspective, and I'll do everything I can to make sure I'm sharing relevant and factual information so people can implement the changes into their lives as they see fit. What I want to share is not psychology. I'm not trying to be a psychologist. I'm a coach and I can share valuable information for people to better their lives. And people will want to listen because human beings are curious, especially for getting to know themselves better. You don't know what you're doing. Well, you got to start somewhere. People don't become experts or become great at what they do by doing nothing. And with that, I took a deep breath, told myself, I'm doing it scared, and that's all that matters, and hit submit. I submitted the podcast and the episodes to Apple iTunes for review and waited. My podcast was about to go live. The first few episodes I posted, I was merely hoping to make a positive impact for those who listened, and I knew that I could only make a difference if I published the podcast. Fast forward 7 years, over 630 episodes, over 132,000 downloads, and incredible interviews, my podcast has been the best thing I ever did for myself and for my business. I am so glad I didn't let imposter syndrome stop me that day. Awareness brings opportunities to choose a new way. Now that I'm aware of the thoughts, words, and arsenal that imposter syndrome uses against me, I can be much more alert in future situations when those thoughts run through my mind and try to derail me. I'm no longer oblivious to the thoughts that cause me to procrastinate, freeze in fear, and avoid the thing that I've set out to do. This awareness highlights where fear is present so you can expect it, embrace it, and learn to move through it. You see, the imposter syndrome you experience cannot be the end of the road. You cannot stop where the fear thoughts show up. Crawl back into your comfort zone, cave, and stay there. You cannot let that be your life. When you experience imposter syndrome, it's just the beginning of the road, not the stop sign. On the other side of imposter syndrome is everything you've ever dreamed of. Don't stop now. Don't let a few old program thoughts derail your dreams. On the other side of imposter syndrome are the results, outcomes, and experiences you've been craving. But these cannot eventuate without first being aware of the fear and moving through it to the other side. So the more aware of when and how the imposter syndrome shows up, the easier it is to turn it into your superpower. Pay attention. Not just to your thoughts, but to your behavior as well. Sometimes we don't even notice we've had any fear-based thoughts. Sometimes we find ourselves procrastinating or procrastinating or doing something completely unrelated 2 hours later because the imposter syndrome has taken the wheel and has driven us down a familiar road of activities we've done many times before because it's easier and safer than feeling the fear and taking the scary new action. This is why bringing more awareness to your thoughts and behaviors will give you powerful insight into what's creating your current results in life or business. If you find yourself distracted with that shiny thing or doing something unrelated to the scary thing you were about to do, there must have been a thought that activated fear inside you that caused you to do something else instead of the task at hand. This happened to me recently when I decided to pitch a podcast guest collaboration to someone I had been following on social media for years. The guest I was reaching out to has a huge following and is someone who I look up to in the industry. As fate would have it, I had booked to attend an event in the United States, and it turned out I was going to be in her city for a few extra days. When I realized this, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be amazing to interview her for the podcast? I felt in my gut I wanted to do this. I would have to send her a pitch. I sat up for a few days thinking about what I would say. I mentioned it to a friend who enthusiastically encouraged me to do it, and I listened to another podcast about losing every shot you don't take, and so I knew it was something I had to do. When would I ever get this opportunity again? It's not every day you travel 15 hours on a plane to a random city in the USA and overlap with a leader you admire immensely. I woke up one morning with a pitch in my head and immediately went to my laptop to get it down onto digital paper. I opened an email and started writing it out. I finished the first draft and then I got some breakfast and a coffee before reviewing it to send. I found her email address, added it to the email, reread it, added a few last details and admired it, feeling like it was a great pitch. I then got busy with my day, coaching session after coaching session before finally getting back to my emails. I sat there looking at the pitch again, and before I knew it, I found myself in the living room hanging up some washing. I had vacuumed the floor, put some clothes away, and made another coffee before realizing what I was actually doing. I was avoiding sending that email. I felt sick to my stomach. I knew I was avoiding it. Fear consumed me. I backtracked my steps and took a moment to think about what was running through my mind before I found myself doing the washing. What if she doesn't respond? Who are you to pitch to have her on your podcast? Your podcast is pathetic compared to hers. Your following is non-existent compared to hers. You're not good enough to even ask such a thing. Yep, the imposter syndrome was kicking my ass. So I decided to give a voice to that little fucker. I said, truth out loud, I'm scared. I took the coach route and imagined I was coaching myself through the fear. I asked myself, What are you afraid of? And then responded to myself out loud. I know this sounds crazy, but speaking out loud to yourself is an effective tool to help you move through the fear and really uncover what's going on in your head. Plus, sometimes when you say things out loud, you realize how ridiculous they are and you instantly feel different about it. This is how the conversation played out. She's going to reject me and rejection feels like shit, my self-doubt exclaimed. My inner coach emerged, speaking to me in a calm, practical manner. You're right, rejection does feel like shit. It's not nice. But you don't know if she's going to reject you. There could be 50 different reasons why she may not accept this request. There are time constraints on your ask. She may be very busy that week that you're there. There are logistical reasons why she may not be able to. But no reason is good enough not to ask. You'll never get a yes if you don't ask. I felt defeated, but I wasn't going to let this stop me. I shifted my energy, shaking out my arms and standing up to step into my shoes as a coach to respond. You have nothing to offer, my inner voice retorted. Yes, you do, responded my inner coach. You have a loyal and engaged audience here in Australia, and you never know, she might want to expand her reach over here. Plus, all content creators need more content, and you're going to give her all the raw footage and recordings. She may value that. Podcast isn't big enough, I argued back. The inner coach responded calmly. Big enough for what? There are only a handful of podcasts worldwide that are reaching hundreds of thousands of downloads, and she likely appears as a guest on many low-ranking podcasts. Plus, your listeners are definitely her perfect audience. No more excuses came. My inner voice was silent. Coach had won again. The coach in me had one last thing to say. Are you willing to face a little rejection and the possibility you may get a yes? What have you got to lose? I reread the email one more time, asked the universe to back me, and hit send. Sometimes you don't know what is running through your mind until you ask it. So if you find yourself procrastinating or doing something you're not supposed to be doing, slow it down and figure out what your brain is saying to you. Question it all. Have an argument with the fear in your head if you need to. Just like I did here, don't let some little fear keep you playing small. Because just like Wayne Gretzky, the famous Canadian ice hockey player, said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Okay, that is just a little sneak peek to get you excited to share with you a little bit more about my experience with imposter syndrome, but also to get you prepped and ready to dive into the next lot of chapters. I may do one more podcast where I share one more chapter, but I want to make sure that I leave it for Audible because I'm obviously creating it for Audible as well. But yes, if you jump into the show notes and check out the link, it will then tell you when the launch date will be. And I hope that you join me in bringing this book to the people that need it. So please feel free to share it out to those who you feel would really benefit from overcoming the imposter syndrome and turning it into their superpower. All right, lovely. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it and I hope you love it. I can't wait to get it out to you. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for listening, and if you found any value out of this episode, make sure you hit the follow button so you get access to the episodes as soon as they are live, and make sure you come hang out with me on Instagram. You can find me at ChristineCorcoran_coach. Have an incredible week.